Welcome back to the Guardian Film Show, the pocket-sized superhero of film criticism, small enough to probe the cracks of a movie, strong enough to carry the full weight of authority. Come ride with us on our next daring adventure. We're off in search of sugar.
Call me Chris.
True confessions and false identities dominate the week's big releases. Here's James Franco pretending to be Jonah Hill in the cat and mouse crime thriller True Story.
If we do this, there's no turning back. Your old life is over.
Here's Ben Kingsley in the guise of Ryan Reynolds in the body swap saga Selfless.
Sie meinen, Sie haben Ihr Ziel erreicht?
Der Führer lebt. Ihr Mordanschlag ist gescheitert.
And is this really the man who tried to blow up Hitler? He might tell us in 13 minutes. And if we're going to hit that deadline, we're going to have to move fast. Ant-Man is the latest blockbuster from Marvel Studios. It stars Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas. It's about a man who shrinks to the size of an ant, hence the name. And it looks like this.
Scott, this is your chance to become the hero. I need you to be the Ant-Man.
The suit has power.
This is not some cute technology like the Iron Man suit.
Scott Lang is a little man, a trivial man, a safecracker, a jailbird, an absent dad. And yet, the smaller he gets, the bigger he grows. Because now Scott Lang is Ant-Man. He's off to the microverse to save the world entire. Joining me for this week's Storm in a Teacup, it's Peter Bradshaw and Catherine Shoord. Peter, this isn't your standard Marvel movie, is it?
No, it's not. I liked it. I found it quite moderately amusing. I think I enjoyed it more than Catherine, in fact. But clearly there's a fundamental problem of how funny is it supposed to be? How far Marvel wants to risk Ant-Man just being a figure of fun? And that's not what Marvel wanted. They wanted to, wanted to make it funny, but make it much more of a conventional hero. And I guess bringing in Adam McKay and Paul Rudd to put in a kind of irony and sophisticated patina on what is supposedly a straight superheroic story, but with a quirky twist.
So is the problem that Marvel take themselves too seriously?
I think to some extent they're allowed to take themselves too seriously because they have hit an incredibly successful formula with taking themselves just seriously enough. Because they don't, I mean, there's lots of fun and laughs in Guardians of the Galaxy and all the rest of it. They know exactly what they want to do with comedy, and they are very good at doing that. But Ant-Man, for some reason, just presented an insoluble problem for them, I think.
It does kind of pull in various different directions, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Joe Cornish and Edgar Wright's script is intact. I mean, they've got the script credit. It's just that sort of obviously some bits were cut out and then Paul Rudd and Adam McKay bits slotted in, and it's on record which bits have been slotted in, but even if it wasn't on record you could still tell the Edgar Wright bits are the ones that seem completely like Edgar Wright bits and are to my taste, and I'm not the biggest Edgar Wright fan, but they're obviously clearly more inventive and interesting and funny. And the bits that have been slotted in are incredibly mushy father-daughter things that usually make me cry against my own will, but in this instance simply made my stomach turn.
Yeah, it felt very cynical.
Oh my God, so shameless. And also sort of bits involving other Avengers that come in, or one particularly. It's sort of so boring.
That was a major misstep, I thought. He lands on the roof of the Avengers HQ.
It's purely and simply cross-publicisation and in-house pluggery. That is very annoying, I think.
And the other thing I find annoying is those little cameos that Stan Lee always does. Each time he crops up, I just think, are we supposed to go, whoa, there's a cop?
But people do. In the screening I was at, people were like, whoa. Yeah. People loved it, to be fair. And so maybe if it's satisfying that audience,
if that was all it was, I wouldn't mind. If it was just Stan just doing one of his micro cameos, that would be fine. I didn't have a problem with it.
I got this.
Some nice effects in there. I like the fight inside the briefcase, where the briefcase is falling out of the helicopter. That was good.
That was good. I think Paul Rudd is great. Everyone likes him. he's too much of a dilf. He's too sexy. He's too ripped. He's done a full Chris Pratt. It's a bit weird. It's a bit creepy. I didn't like that. I thought the romance between him and what she called Evangeline Lilly was so boring. There was no chemistry whatsoever. And that whole plot line with her and Michael Douglas, it was on incredibly bland form.
Yeah, that's another real problem, because he should be the bad guy, Michael Douglas, because he's such a great figure. I mean, he's this leonine figure, and he's chucked away on the role of Dr. Hank Pym. Really, he should be the bad guy, but of course he's too old to be the bad guy. I don't know, it was wrong. That was a shame.
So.
I'm Ant-Man. I know. Wasn't my idea.
Find a very little place in your heart for Ant-Man, and yet the cinemas contain so many other treasures. Just the other day, for instance, Peter and Catherine took themselves into town to see a movie starring Jonah Hill and James Franco. True story.
Hello? Hi, my name is Pat Fredo. I'm a reporter with the Oregonian. I'm sure you're buried in all this by now, but I wanted to get your side on the Christian Longo story.
Who?
Christian Longo?
Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Longo.
Christian Longo is a suspected murderer who dearly wants to be a writer, like disgraced journalist Mike Finkel. And Finkel dearly wants to get the story of a lifetime from Christian Longo. It's a marriage made in heaven, except the result may just be hell.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime story.
Catherine, if nothing else, this shows what a decent actor James Franco can be when he's not arsing about.
I disagree entirely, actually. No, I think he's only good when he's arsing about. I mean, he's only good when he's in comedy. In the interview, the North Korean film, I thought he was so funny. And you can't get the sort of smirking soap actor going for the cheap laugh thing out of your head in this when he's acting. And he's just completely unconvincing. Is this great? Wholly unconvincing.
By my calculations, I'd say I'm pretty ordinary.
As is Jonah Hill, I'm afraid. And the fact that Jonah Hill, as this, he's no Paul Rudd in this, and his character's completely uncharming as well, and he's married somehow to Felicity Jones. It's like, oh, okay. So the whole thing is very, very unconvincing. This is really dismayingly disappointing. I mean, it starts okay, and it's sort of got an okay texture, and completely descends into sort of crime story soap. It's so boring. You don't care if he did it. You don't care if he finds out. You just don't care. And the courtroom scenes, I mean, a few of them are sort of all right, but the kind of gaspy bits where, you know, James Franco says something that's a bit creepy, and Jonah Hill suddenly realises, you know, soundtracks by big, you know, it's just awful.
It's true.
Isn't it a bit of Silence of the Lambs, Peter?
I don't know. If they got anywhere near that would be great. I think the problem is it's based on the very dubious source material of Michael Finkel's, what appears to be a very self-serving account. I mean, basically, he's tying himself up in knots, having been caught making stuff up, and then he has to flam up this encounter as some sort of big redemptive exit strategy from his own shame. I mean, the contact between the two men, their connection, is without interest. I mean, he just seems to have passed himself off for a few minutes as Mike Frankel, or Finkel, whatever his name is, while on the run in Mexico. But he hasn't tried to pass himself off in any sustained or interesting or consistent way. He just said his name was blah, 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 and then he got arrested. So there's no real connection between the two of them. The idea of imposture, him making stuff up and the journalist making stuff up, there's no match between those two concepts, and there's no interesting dramatic tension between them either. And it's boringly paced and uninteresting, and the two of them give very, very boring performances.
I've been decent, regular for 92.88% of the time. You couldn't tell that from reading the papers.
Jonah Hill and James Franco in True Story. And we now bounce from one confession box to another, directed by Oliver Hirschbiegel of Downfall fame and Diana infamy. This is 13 Minutes.
Wir glauben Ihnen kein Wort.
Was?
Ein kleiner Handwerker wie Sie kann so eine Bombe unmöglich allein gebaut haben.
Wer hat Ihnen die notwendigen Hilfsmittel beschafft?
Zum letzten Mal, wer sind Ihre Hintermänner?
Gut, dann sag ich's halt.
In 1939, Adolf Hitler escaped death by a matter of minutes when a bomb exploded inside a packed German hall. The Gestapo believed they found their man in lowly carpenter George Elser. Cue the flashbacks, turn back the clock. The answers, it turns out, are all in the past. Peter, speaking of true crimes, does this make amends for Diana?
I think to a certain extent it does. It's returned Hirschbiegel to his safer ground, really, of the German wartime era,
yes.
Nazi Germany. I think it's an interesting movie. I really knew nothing about Elsa, despite the fact he's already been made the subject of a film ages ago with Klaus Maria Brandauer playing him, and that was called 7 Minutes.
Yes,
so
so
they
what's the
seem to
deal with that?
disagree with the number of minutes which he escaped by. I thought it was very interesting. I really like Christian Friedel. I think he's a very good actor. We'd seen him he played, with a little bit more weight on, he played the school teacher in The White Ribbon, and he played Heinrich von Kleist in Jessica Hausner's Amour Fou. He's a very good actor. What I can see, what appears to be the USP of this film is a kind of creative license in that it imagines that he was interrogated by the Nazi police chief Arthur Neber, who is played by that other great warhorse of German character acting, Burkhard Klausner. And Neber interrogates him, is sort of impressed in spite of himself by the calm, steady consistency of Elsa's individual integrity, and turns out to be one of the Stauffenberg conspirators in 1944. Now, as far as I can see, there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that those two men met, but the film contrives this meeting and contrives a kind of change of heart in him. And it's interesting. It's very difficult to dramatize Hitler's assassins because it doesn't quite make sense in a classic kind of drama format. You know, Hitler's opponents are Stalin or Churchill or the great titanic forces of the Second World War. When you get individual assassins who you know haven't succeeded, it sort of doesn't quite work in a weird way. But it's interesting.
It makes a bonus of that.
Yeah,
though,
it
doesn't
does.
It?
Arguably,
I mean,
it does.
he's a small man.
He's a little guy
and a strange figure. It's kind of complicated.
Yes. What's interesting is that all the Nazi interrogators want to know is who are his conspirators. Is he a communist? Is he part of the Jewish Bolshevist conspiracy? All the rest of it. But no, he's not. He's just an individual guy who has made a decision that Hitler is a bad thing. And that is what the film is about. And the flashbacks sketch in his background, which appears to be a perfectly normal, sympathetic, flawed, likable guy, in a way. So it's a good movie. I'm not sure that it quite brings the firepower and the high octane that you want when you're talking about something like this. You're talking about Hitler. So I felt this was a bit of a TV movie in a way. A very, very classy, intelligent piece of work, but slightly minor and small scale. Well acted.
I quite like that juxtaposition of the big canvas of history and then this like weird little kind of knotty character study kind of thrown in there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It didn't quite work for me. I mean, I think that it's illuminating about what was wrong with Diana as well, because he just can't do romance at all. You know, he can't do any sort of love affair. He can't do courting. He can't do kissing. He can't really do women. You know, I mean, those sort of things really didn't come off, and so. You know, I have some experience of woman, and so I sort of think, oh, that feels a bit weird. I have no experience of Nazi torture, luckily. So maybe that feels weird too. It's just, it's more alien, and so you don't notice the sort of jarring notes and the kind of glumphing. But you know, it nowhere near as good for me as Downfall, although there are, you know, obviously it's quite well done, isn't it?
Welcher Wahnsinnige steuerte Sie, Vollidiot Sie? Es ist, wie ich sag.
The would-be killer turned hero in the space of 13 minutes. Last up, we have Tarsem Singh's Selfless, a glossy composite picture with the face of Ryan Reynolds, the brain of Ben Kingsley, and a body cobbled together from offcuts from The Bourne Identity, Face Off, and John Frankenheimer's brilliant 60s film Seconds. But does it walk, and does it breathe, and does it, Tarsem, sing?
We offer humanity's greatest minds more time to fulfill their potential. Designed to offer you the very best of the human experience. It's alive, an empty vessel.
Ben Kingsley is a billionaire New York property tycoon with terminal cancer. He needs a new body, he needs a new life, and that's where Ryan Reynolds comes in. Now this handsome mongrel contraption is living at large down in New Orleans, and all that stands in the way of a happy ending is a few back-breaking plot twists and some unquiet ghosts. Catherine, one of the problems with a film that tries on all these different guises is that you do wind up thinking, what the hell is it?
It's sort of an above average TV movie, isn't it? It's sort of daft and fun, and I kind of actually really quite enjoyed watching it, a hell of a lot more than something like True Story, which is just dull. This is sort of batty and occasionally piques your interest in a genuine way. There's some interesting ideas here, mishandled. But you know, Ryan Reynolds is a fantastically likeable actor. He's not at his best in this, but he handles it, and he sort of seems like he's on your side. His little smirking looks are not like James Franco's. They are actually sort of sympathetic, and I quite liked Ben Kingsley's massive ham in it, and I quite like the daughter relationship. So yeah, I mean, for me this was better than expected by some distance.
Peter, did you like it?
It's like so many things we see. It's a great Act 1 movie. Act
is,
1 is great.
Yeah.
Although I really wanted Ryan Reynolds to do a kind of impression of Ben Kingsley. I mean, I thought, please, there has to be a kind of vice versa like gag here. I mean, I think in the very beginning when he's just looking like this, kind of still and slightly kind of constipated.
Yeah,
that's
he's
the nearest.
channeling Ben.
He's channeling Ben. He's thinking it would be so good if he just had the comedy smarts to try to do Ben Kingsley, even if it was just for the first 5 minutes before he went into something else. But no. I thought the premise is great, really quite intriguing in a way.
Well, it's very Seconds, isn't it?
It's very Seconds. I hadn't thought of that, to be honest with you. I thought it was like Twilight Zone. It was straight Twilight Zone, but without the Twilight Zone's brevity and their taut sense of discipline. And then it just becomes a chase thriller, and it just unravels, really. I've just got a bit bored with it, to be honest with you. But the first half hour or so, especially a really great montage. I mean, montages can be so hokey, but the montage where he's relocated to New Orleans and sort of gets into it and starts jogging and starts getting off with girls and playing basketball and things like that. It was with a really interesting kind of street music sort of throbbing and sort of drumming in the background. It was really well done. It was quite a funky little scene, but the rest of it just, I don't know, it just unravels into the usual drama sentimentality, I'm afraid. It's a shame.
Interesting career that Ryan Reynolds is having, though, isn't it? He's certainly taking some gambles. He's rolling the dice.
Yeah, no, I mean, The Voices and Buried and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, he's really, you know, I remember when he first came up in films like Blade, and he was just sort of stripped and hot and dumb, and, you know, he was a joke, and now he's sort of really, I really like him. I think he's really sympathetic.
I think he's good. I have a great memory of Van Wilder, Party Liaison. Very funny film, good film.
The Nines?
The Nines, excellent film.
But not this one.
No, unfortunately not.
Didn't you interview him for an Atom O'Brien film that hasn't come out yet?
I did, yeah. He was very nice. And he was saying that he has an agent. People saying, you need an agent, you're getting terrible advice. And he's like, but this is my choices. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So if it goes wrong, blame him. And we do.
And we do.
You okay?
Fine. I just haven't seen anything like that in about 52 years.
Ryan Reynolds playing the body of an old man, played by Ben Kingsley in Selfless. Time for some questions for the panel. What's your best and worst movie remake?
I would say the best is probably still Some Like It Hot, of course, which is remade from a film, a German film called Fanfares of Love, which isn't available on DVD.
Which I think is also, that is itself a remake.
It's itself a remake of a French film, which I haven't seen. I would also say, I would make a case, nobody really liked it at the time, and they thought it was kind of Philistine, but Steven Soderbergh's version of Solaris, I thought was an interesting movie. It wasn't crass or dumb at all. It was really interesting and respectful in what it set out to do.
The next question is, are there any films that have genuinely upset you?
When I first saw Gaspar Noé's Irreversible, that certainly did upset the hell out of me. I mean, that really did absolutely discombobulate me.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
But that's not a bad thing, and I've come in time to realise that that was sort of the point, and my initial reaction was probably not right.
I remember being upset by the Hostel film, or that haunting me.
I don't. Yes, I think you're right. I mean, all of that torture porn stuff, I don't. And I like a good horror film, but they seem to be more about symptoms than response. I think torture porn.
They stay with you in a slightly. But I think you know, 10 years ago, I used to perhaps still get upset by films. They don't really touch me anymore. Got such
battle
thick skin.
hardened. You've got your 1,000-yard stare. And that's it. We've scuttled off in search of sugar. Don't think we found that much, but no matter, because next week brings a whole raft of fresh releases. Please join us as we ride out in search of treasure. Hope springs eternal.